John Erickson, and welcome to Advanced Ball Striking. Today, I'm going to discuss a general quick overview of the module work that we're working through, that the students are working through in the ABS program. In the first module, we're basically training the student to rotate their forearms into impact properly from a flat entry, and we cover the protocols for what the shaft needs to be doing, where it needs to be, where the club face needs to be. As the students send in their videos for critique, I'm constantly changing and redirecting them, everything from their foot positions, their stance, what their legs and hips and arms and shoulders are all doing. So we learn to strike from the 430 line into impact, and it takes a certain amount of strength because most of the students are coming from a swinger's release where the hands were dead and passive and sort of moving through and rolling through impact, and we don't really want to do that. So we learn to strike actively with the forearm rotation so that we can hold shaft flex. In the second module, we address ground pressures. Not only the vertical ground pressures, but also horizontal pressures and rotational pressures of the feet. So we cover these and we build upon what we learned in Module 1. We now apply the proper ground pressures of the feet, which then sets us up for Module 3, which is we're going to focus on post-impact pivot thrust. In other words, the torso starts picking up speed and accelerating again to help us achieve the shaft flex hold through impact. It's important that the Module 2 work is done in preparation for Module 3 because we're dealing with opposing forces, and as the torso picks up speed, it needs to be pressuring off the ground pressures that we've created in the Module 2. So Module 3 is very specific about, again, what the shaft is doing through impact, where the club face is at, what the arms are doing, where they are in relationship to the body, and how we're moving the shaft. We start developing a dynamic swing plane through impact based upon opposing forces and pressures rather than just flipping and releasing the club through impact. So again, holding shaft flex, stabilizing low point, minimizing club face rotation post-impact are critical here. As we move into the fourth module, we start addressing swing plane, and we start to learn exactly where the swing plane is and how we're moving from right hip pocket to left hip pocket, and that the swing plane is not moving out here to the right and rolling the club face, which is typically seen in a swinger's release. We're keeping everything moving around, and we have a very specific way of analyzing the swing plane very precisely so the students can get an understanding as to what their club shaft is actually doing. As we move into Module 5, we start dealing with the hand attitudes, grip pressures, and how the wrists need to be behaving in the swing, particularly at transition. It was interesting a few years ago when Brad Hughes came to visit me, and he was having a bit of trouble with his swing after years of playing the lightweight gear and such. But what he did have were those great hands, and I gave him the 4 tests of hand attitudes, and he flew through those with flying colors. It was really a testament to what a fine player he is. It didn't take a whole lot to get him back playing well again, and I think he's playing very good golf again right now. As we work into the 6th module, we deal with transition, and we take what we've learned in the 5th module, the hand attitudes, that we have the right attitudes in our hands and that our wrists are working properly. And now we're applying those in transition so that we can transition the club and start working the shaft down and behind our body so that then we can use everything that we've learned in the prior modules, Module 1 and 2 and 3, learning how to strike from the 430 line. We get that club working behind us, and then now we can apply our torso rotation and strike the ball. The Module 6 is very complicated in a lot of ways because transition is very, very critical, and there are several ways of transitioning the club. Certainly a lot of different ways to get there with various backswings, people taking the shaft steep and slotting it, people pulling the shaft inside and then slotting the club. But the backswing is very much a personal thing, and there are a lot of ways to do it, so everybody's swing is going to look different. But we can train to transition the club and slot the club and work the weight down into the right leg and do all the things that we need to do. There's a lot of drills in the Module 6 area that have been very helpful for the students. When we get to Module 7, then we start tying the whole thing together biomechanically. So we're really completing the swing. We're bringing Module 6 back into Module 1 and striking the golf ball. And we've got drills to work on that. In Module 7, we also focus on the cohesive tension that needs to exist in the body. Unlike a swinger who's trying to relax the body, as a hitter, we need to engage and embrace the activity of the muscles to strike the ball, so we feel a firmness and a cohesive tension. And there's 4 main points of focus in developing that cohesive body tension, and we get into exploring that in Module 7. We also focus on weight transfer in Module 7 and how to properly transfer the weight of our body so that the weight transfer is happening through the strike and not just transferring the weight left, as a lot of people have been taught over the last 10 years, to move left and then come down. We want to have our weight transferring through the strike. So we have drills and exercises to work on that too. So Module 7 is really tying the whole thing together biomechanically. Then in Module 8 we start striking golf balls, and we've got protocols for the basis of doing that correctly right in the beginning. So we apply everything that we've learned and we strike golf balls in Module 8, and we have various camera angles, and I'm able to see and monitor the students to make sure that they're doing this correctly. So Module 8 also covers the basic alignment protocols. We don't want to work our swing around a fixed alignment. We want our alignment to develop from our swing, so it's a bit different than what's typically traditionally taught. We never want to force ourselves into a particular alignment, putting clubs on the ground, because everybody's swing is going to be a little bit different. Therefore, everybody's alignment is going to be a little bit different. But in Module 8, I show the students how to find their own alignment. We know this to be true watching Lee Trevino. George Knudsen, again, talked about finding your own personal alignment. However, I will say that it's typically better to line slightly left than it would be to line to the right, although there have been some good players that have lined up right. But lining up right, there's a tendency to move over the top, and we were not able to take advantage of working the club behind us as much as we can that way. But there have been some great players that have tugged the ball a little bit. But anyway, it's important that we find our own alignment. Then in Module 9, we start working on how to draw and fade the ball and shape our shots, and in a very unique way. Early young golfers who are new to the game, typically try and square up the club face by throwing the hands, squaring the club face like this. It's typically what people first do on an intuitive level. So as a player gets better, they learn to try and roll their wrists through impact from the inside to square up the club face. But in Module 9, I show a much more sophisticated way of drawing and fading the ball. We don't have to change ball position. We don't have to change our stance. We don't have to change our backswing. We don't have to change transition, the downswing. Everything that we do to draw and fade the ball and shape our shots is done post-impact with our post-impact intentions. And this is great because as we learn how to draw and fade the ball correctly, then it takes pressure off our alignment at address. And when you see great players like Trevino that would just walk into a shot, kind of take one look at it and strike the ball, it's because they have an intuitive ability to feel the ball back to the target. They can take one look and know if they feel they're aimed a little bit right or a little bit left. They can work the ball back to the target, and they don't have to do anything in their address position, backswing, downswing, changing their grip, any of that stuff. there's a lot of ways to draw and fade the ball. We know this by going to the driving range, and you can see people hitting the ball left and right and all over the place. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it, but this is a much better way of doing it. It's ultimately where we're trying to get to. Then as we get into module 10 and 11, then we start talking about combining trajectory and shot shaping and learning how to hit off side hill lies and how to play in the wind and all the different environmental factors that are facing us out on the golf course. So we really start focusing then on how to play the game and course strategy and how to go about playing golf. Now there are also some elective modules. One is called the super slotting module, and this has been designed for students who want to work on really slotting the club deeply behind them, similar to Ben Hogan, George Knudson, Gary Player, and in modern golf, Sergio Garcia. And there's a technique to doing this, to the super slotting act, what I call the super slotting action. It's a little bit different. It isn't necessarily a requirement to be a great ball striker, but I do think it's very advantageous, and I know a lot of the students that have been working on it have been having really fantastic results. There's also an elective putting module that I've developed fairly recently, and based upon going back and looking at some of the older putting strokes and the techniques that were used in the past, everything nowadays has been very upright and pendulum sort of style. But there was a different way of putting when greens weren't so good. Putters were a little flatter. They were set up a little bit differently. They actually looked a little bit more like golf clubs. And some of these principles have been used by many of the great putters, even modern times. Ben Crenshaw, Lauren Roberts has applied these principles. Isao Aoki, one of the great putters of the 80s, Hall of Fame golfer. And then, of course, we look at some of the older strokes too. Gary Player and Billy Casper, who was a great putter, and of course the great Bobby Locke, which is very influential on my feelings and beliefs about putting. I think it's excellent for students that have a hard time with putting. Like myself, I was never really a great putter, but I've learned now to apply more of the principles of the golf swing to work the putter head more like a golf swing rather than trying to create an entirely different system. This way it takes a little bit less practice and it feels a little more natural to us. Because in putting, we really want the stroke to feel comfortable and natural, but also have good mechanics that work more around the flow of the body. And we've had some excellent results from students working with the putting modules. There's also a chipping module, pitching module, and sand shot module. There'll be more modules, I'm sure, developed as time goes on. I like to see the ABS as a continuing, growing body of work rather than writing a book and saying, okay, this is the way it is from here on out, and this is what I'm going to teach. I'm constantly learning myself and learning how to help students improve their games as time goes on, because I see a lot of different kinds of golf swings and a lot of flaws and a lot of good stuff too. So it's not only just helping good players, but helping the beginners and the new players as well. So I hope you find this helpful, and again, welcome to Advanced Ball Striking.